Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to Real Talk Tuesday. It's been a little while, but we back like we never left. So, of course, I have my dream team with me. We got Miss Brittany Stevenson. We got Miss Brianna Branch. We got Reverend Brandon Gale and Reverend Kenneth Watson. And we have a very special guest today who is near and dear to my heart. One of my bestest friends in the whole wide world. We go back since 5th grade. Newly Dr. Taryn Nance.
So, what's going on? What's going on?
Love black PhDs.
Right. Long time coming. So tonight, it's a new season is coming in. It's September. Summer's on its way out. And we thought it would be fitting, to talk about good decision making, right? So we got the new season, school is just starting, college, high school, all the schools are starting. So we're talking about the importance of good decision making. So today, of course, we brought my very good friend in, Dr. Nance, and he's been in the education system for a long time. He's going to be shedding some insight, as far as what's going on in our education system and how our children, are being affected, and things that may be causing them to maybe not make the best decisions. So we're going to be trying to help out a little bit, right? Because that is what we do.
That is what we're here for.
So I have a question for y'all, and that's how I figured I would start this out. Question: are there any decisions that you have made in your life that you wish you could have changed or done differently?
Is this a real question?
This is a real question. We can just start real serious. I'm going to give you just a second to think about it. I'm going to read it again. So, are there any decisions that you have made in your life that you wish you could have done differently or have changed?
How far you want us to go back this week?
Reverend Watson, however far you need to go back. However far you need to go back.
We were before we jumped on, we were talking about school. We're talking about education. So so I can go ahead and start. So one decision that I wish that I had done differently is that I wish that I had taken some more time throughout my undergraduate years to really discover what I wanted to do and not just go and get a degree. And then I wish that in that discovery, it would have led me to finish my matriculations, undergraduate, graduate, maybe doctorate degrees sooner. Because at this big age, school is very hard for me now. I feel like I had, life was a little bit different, obviously, before, you get a little bit older, you have a little more responsibility and things like that. So I think that had I just been I had taken a little more initiative to be a little more guided and to really be more prayerful and mindful of what it, seeking passion and as well as profession and not just profession. I wish that I had done that so that I wouldn't be spinning the block, many years later. But, it's never too late to be great. So while I wish that was a different decision, I'm still thankful for the journey and God's given me strength for it. That's mine.
Keep on keeping on. So, Brianna, how about you, sis?
I don't know. I feel like I've heard this question before, and in my head, I don't know. I feel like I'm too young to answer, if that makes sense. Like, how many super, really large, big decisions have I had to make in my cute little 23?
I
don't know. So anytime I feel like I encounter this question, the only thing I can think of is that I can be pretty to myself, pretty introverted in things, and so sometimes I look back on certain situations and I wish I would have pushed myself out of my comfort zone a little bit more, gone out and did something, even though I was comfortable in the house. It was fine. In the end, it doesn't matter. But sometimes I wish I would have been I'll step a toe or two outside for a second instead of just keeping them all inside. I guess that's it.
All right, very good. Reverend Gail.
Well, dealing with school, I wish that I had went to college straight out of high school. That is one thing. I wish I had went to college. It was straight out of high school, and I started a family early. So I wish I had went to college straight out of high school. I had my master's, and I probably had my doctorate by now, instead of trying to get all these things at the almost 40. But I wish that's one thing I wish I did. And I mean, I don't regret having my children, my family, but it definitely makes things a little more difficult when you take care of family and a wife and all those things. So that's the only thing I wish I just continued my education straight out of high school instead of taking that break. Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. And Reverend Watson.
So I guess I'll stay with the school theme.
It doesn't have to be school related.
I'll keep it school related. I would say probably when I graduated from Salisbury University with my bachelor's, I wish I had just continued and immediately began pursuit of my master's degree. Because what happened was I graduated from college. I started making money. And 2 years later, I started making more money. Mm-hmm. 5 years removed, I started to make even more money. And
well, let me hold some.
It's been a challenge. It's been very challenging getting back to school. I've been able to get my Master's of Divinity degree. But I had always wished to get my MBA, and I've never made it back. And quite frankly, I don't know if I ever will, because I guess I've been successful without it. So I wish I had just never stopped and just continued to go through. What I realized is that that I guess that wasn't the path that God had for me. No regrets. I'm super blessed and super thankful for the position that God's allowed me to be in. But I would say that would be the regret in reference to school.
Okay. Well, since we're still on the theme of school, I'm gonna just stay right in there too. School was something for me. So I was the first person to go to college. I was the first person to graduate high school in my immediate family. So I was the first person to go to college in my immediate family too. So it was a lot of pressure. It was like, there's nothing to go back to, right? So failure isn't an option. So I was so serious in school. When my best friend was DJ. They was out having fun, living life, and I was like going to 2 schools. I graduated from Salisbury and UMES, and then I had a job, I had a household, and I just had so much responsibility during that time that I didn't get to enjoy my college years. Mm-hmm. It was like, you got to get it in, and you got to get it done, and you can't fail. So if I had to change anything, it would be I wish that I would have been able to enjoy it a little bit more. But that just wasn't my journey at that time. So
you made up for lost time.
And you know what? And you're right, because when everybody else was out having fun, I was not. Okay.
But now she outside, Joe.
That explains a lot.
I was not.
That explains a lot.
I was not.
I'm surprised we even got her on tonight, Joe, because she be outside.
So you're right. I keep my priorities straight, but it was something. All right, and Dr. Nance, what about you?
So I'm gonna go spiritual for a little bit. So I was thinking about my childhood and high school and then early college, and I grew up in the church, but I never had a relationship with the pastor, none of the reverends. I just, for whatever reason, I can't speak to that, but out here, obviously I'm the principal of the high school, so a lot of pastors when we come to their church. So I ended up going to a church with my lady, and the pastor and I connected. And it's the first time I've had a relationship where I can text the pastor. He calls me, we go out to lunch. And I also have a spiritual advisor I meet with once a week out here. So my regret is the fact that I didn't have that spiritual life growing up. I know that a lot of the mistakes I made, man-made mistakes, was because my spirit wasn't right. So I'm going through challenges out here as well, you know, as trying to be this revolutionary principled Black scholar or whatever who wants to be hip hop as well. But the spirituality piece is the reason why I'm still here, because I don't want to lose my relationship with my pastor or my spiritual advisor. And I never had that before in my life. I can talk to my pastor like how I want to. I can go hood. I can go academic. We can go street. Like, he accepts me in all ways. And I think about the little Black boys like me who probably needed to, like, forget none against the lower tier people, none against it. But sometimes for somebody like me, I need the pastor. I need the pastor to tell me left or right. Like, and maybe Ocean can tell you that. So with all due respect to the reverends and pastors on here, look out in that crowd, because there's one of me out there who's afraid, who don't understand nothing, who's about to go out here and make a bunch of mistakes, and he ain't gonna ask you or raise his hand or say, "Hey, I need your help." You're gonna have to look out there and grab him, and he gonna resist. He gonna keep resisting to see if you gonna stand the lane. But you gotta stay with him and keep him spiritually grounded, because I know for me that's my biggest regret. So yeah,
that's good.
That's a good one.
That's good. That's real.
Well, we glad you on a straight and narrow, Dr. Nene. I love that for you. I love that for you. Waiting for the engagement.
You in his business too much.
Man.
I'm just saying. It's an invite. All right. So now we're going to kind of segue into your journey, you know, towards becoming a principal, you know, how you ended up where you are, because you're currently in Chicago, and, you know, you're from the shore. We're from Pocomoke. And just talk a little bit about your journey and how, you know, some of the decisions that you made, you know, that kind of led up to where you are right now.
Man, so going back to high school, I was a typical jock, and very arrogant, couldn't tell me nothing. You know, I excelled academically without trying much. Thank God for the gifts. But I definitely didn't take advantage of my high school career. I could have been, you know, really, you know, farther along. But just, you know, no father, because my father passed when I was 2 years old. And so my mother, she did the best she could do with me. I mean, I was a handful. I wasn't in the streets necessarily, but I just was a handful. Like, I was, you know, always leader-minded. And so, you know, if I disagreed with you, or if I couldn't see what you were saying, then if I see a better way, I'm not listening to you. That's how I carried it. And so, you know, I had all this pressure coming out of high school, because I was, you know, supposed to be going off to college and, you know, 4-year degree in 3 years and all that type of stuff. And none of that happened, you know. And so having my kids, my 2 daughters, is the reason why I turned it around, because I was back home in my mother's house, and she was like Dollar General or Family Dollar. At this point, I had failed college twice. I went to Coppin State, had a small scholarship, lost it the first semester, because I was a country boy in the city. And so, you know, all the girls playing ball, sun's out, everybody on the strip, on the block, you know, it's B-more, the street cats is rocking with me, because I had all the, I was a sneakerhead. So I had bought like 100 pair of shoes to college. So, like, you know, I had all the love from everybody. So it was like class was second. So if it rained outside, I ain't going any excuse I could have. I just wasn't ready. You know what I'm saying? I just wasn't that grit, that determination. Having a household where they're talking about college and you wearing the sweatshirts and all that stuff, didn't have that. You know, my mother worked 16 hours, 4 days a week at a nursing home, because she dropped out of school when she was in like the 8th grade. So I didn't have those words of college. I didn't have that thought process of like what it takes. We didn't sit down from dinner and talk about those things. So when I got to college both times, shit, I was partying. And the second time I was with Miyoshi at UMES, as she mentioned, and I was a DJ. So I literally had people on campus screaming out my name, and a little bit of fame on a local level. Like, we had some songs we made, and everybody was chanting them, and, you know, so I was just living the life. And then I failed again. So now I'm back home with two kids that I can't take care of. And it was either, you know, grind it out go to community college or be a failure. And so I took the transit bus 5 a.m. all the way to 11 p.m., get back home at 12, wake up, take a shower, go to bed, wake up 4:30, 5 o'clock. I did that for like 5 years. But I always had a plan. And that's what, I think the reason why I was able to overcome that, because I had a plan. And as Miosha talked about the choices, I made a lot of bad choices, right? Let's be clear. But once I hit rock bottom and it was nothing but me, the Lord, in that closet, I just started thinking about, plans, and I knew that I had the capability to get myself out of it. But, at that time, I wasn't ready. And so when we think about making good choices, I think one of the biggest things for me is, making sure that it's spiritually grounded first. I wasn't really spiritually grounded. I was raised in the church, but I didn't understand what the pastors were saying. Nobody took time. And I want to ask questions. I'm going to question, your thought process behind this scripture, because you can tell me colorful stories about, what you believe to be true, but I need to make sure it makes sense to me. And so, and where I go to church, back in the day, you can't ask no questions. You can't raise your hands in Bible study, ask no questions. It's still like that to some degree. And so, with that being said, I didn't really have that lane. And so that was the biggest piece for me. So now that I'm spiritually grounded, when I go to analyze my decisions, I think about short-term, mid-term, long-term. I'm also weighing the risk, okay, if I go through this doctorate degree, right? All right, let me see how many years it's going to take. Let me talk to people that went to the college. Let me get as much information. I think that's another thing that I try to do, get as much information as I can, talk to as many people as I can, research, just before I make a big decision, because, I know that I'm invested into my life and I want to progress. So to me, being spiritually grounded, and then make sure you have as much information as you can before you make a decision. Talk to your circle. I use my circle all the time. Without my circle, I couldn't make good decisions, because they're going to always give me their perspective. And if you know me, don't give me no fluff, behind the bush. No, give it to me straight. I ain't got time to waste. And then I'm like, well, a month later, well, I was going to tell, you should have told, it's your fault. You should have told me when you had the chance to tell me. So I'm that type of person. And so I have a great support system that really keeps me grounded. And so I would say, to sum it up, the three things that I think lead to good choices: to spiritually grounded, make sure you have all the information, and use your support system. Even if they're telling you something you don't want to hear, hey, you got options. You can take the information they give you in the options, or you can say, nah, I'm gonna already go and move how I'm gonna move. And so for me, I had to stop moving how I wanted to move and listen. I had to really stop moving how I wanted to move and just sit down, get somewhere and sit down and just listen. And so as I go through trials and tribulations in life, I always try to, think about my spirituality and get somewhere and sit down and listen. And so I think for us men, I'm going to speak for the men for a second, that is sometimes, we get in our own way, and, it's hard for us to listen and to see the other side of the picture. And so, for me, I'm trying to listen more to my lady and ask her for advice, because I want to empower her. I want her to feel like she has a role in my life, because if my support system is everybody else outside, and then when it's time for her to tell me something and I don't listen to her, then I'm devaluing her. So I try to make sure that she's involved every day in my decision making as well. So those are just a few things that I think will lead you to better decision making if you are spiritually grounded, and then you get all the information and you use your support system and get somewhere to sit down and listen.
All right.
Very good. So another question that I have. So you're in the education system and you're in Chicago. So I know you were down here for a little while, like in the Cambridge area. So what segued you to go to Chicago? What was your ultimate decision with that move, and how do you feel about it? Do you feel that was a good decision that you made?
So I always envisioned, when I became a substitute teacher years ago, that I wanted to go back to Pocomoke High School to be the principal, and then ultimately become the superintendent. And so on my way up the ladder, everybody was telling me, you got to be a certain age, you got to be a certain color. And I just don't mean black and white. I mean the organizational culture color. So like, I'm black, right? But this type of black don't fit everybody's organizational culture. I wear hats every day. I'm fly. I got my anti-violence beads on. I'm rounding up the kids. I'm doing cartwheels in the hallways. I'm popping up in classes, going live. I'm just all over the place. Much and so that scared my current school district, because, for whatever, I became the face of the school. And again, I didn't move from Maryland to Chicago to be the face of anything. I just wanted a home. And so once the love started pouring in, it was amazing. So going back to the Shore, they boxed me in. Every time I tried to make a move left or right, somebody telling me why I can't. I'm qualified. I got all the degrees that you need. I don't need a doctorate degree to be a principal. You know what I'm saying? I just need a master's and a certification. I'm certified in 6 states. So it's like, what was the reason why y'all didn't want me to be principal? And I have to believe it's because of organizational culture wasn't gonna. I don't know how they were gonna respond. I look at myself on a small scale like Dion. Like, you see what he's doing for college football. I don't know too many principals who rock like me. I'm in the hood, like really with my kids, going to their block parties. I'm really in the streets, you know what I'm saying? And really touching the families, delivering food, showing up at meetings. I had 2 kids that died from gun violence. So that's why I moved out here for the gun violence. That's the real reason why I moved from Maryland to Chicago, was for the gun violence. Because I felt like, and I'm gonna go political for a second, if you have a city riddled with gun violence and the white male principals are at the heads of all these schools and nothing's getting done, well, you go take a chance on somebody like me who may be a little different, but if the traditional isn't working,
the tradition is not working.
Yeah, you got to give me a shot. So that's the reason why I moved. And so the Shore just was very limited, man. It the average high school principal is 45. So I'm 33 years old trying to apply for a high school principal job, knowing I ain't going to get them, but I'm qualified, so I'm going to keep applying. Mm-hmm. So I applied for like 60 jobs over the course of 2 years before I was able to land a job in Chicago. And I just credit God for keeping me on that journey. But, I pushed through, and I didn't want the title. I wanted the influence and power. Like, I don't care about the title. I wanted to be at the table to make decisions that are going to have long-term effect for our generations. And so I'm not interested in just saving one kid. I want to build a system to save 20,000 kids. And so when I'm talking that big talk in these rooms, like Dion, they get upset. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, after the meeting, we had that post meeting, and they're like, well, Taryn, you said you want to save Black and brown kids, but what about all kids? And I'm just looking at them like, so y'all, we not in the George Floyd era now where, so we going to act like, so I'm in the room like, well, and I don't say like piggyback or pushback. I don't say none of that nonsense. I be like, this is where I stand. I'm here to save Black and brown lives.
Very much true.
You don't like me saying that, then get rid of it. And that's just how I carry it, because it's too many Black kids in the school system who are not allowed to be themselves. And as a result, they're suspended, they're expelled at 3-to-1 rates. And I could go on. And so, that's the reason why I moved here, to save Black and brown lives, and specifically the gun violence. The Eastern Shore and small towns like that, rural areas, they're not going to accept somebody like me who's loud, vibrant colors, outspoken, getting love from Black and white, because everybody wants real. And that's the thing that I think surprised them, is that the white rich constituents, I have a saying called it's the you baby, because I'm in Urbana, so we say it's the you baby, and I'm from the South, so I always say baby. So when you got white rich constituents who vote for Trump saying it's the you baby, stop me in the supermarket, then dang, that wasn't supposed to happen. They were supposed to be sending emails to my bosses saying, hey, this radical dude is I don't know, he's doing too much. And so when that type of
it can be a lot. It can be a lot for some people. But yes. What do you find, as far as decision making, and what you're in high school? So how what do you find as far as the students and their decision making overall? Do you feel like they struggle? Do you feel like there's some things that can be done different?
I would say the high schools I've been a part of, they're a tale of two cities. But what I mean is, you have the AP, soccer, theater, those kids. And then there is a little bit of middle. I would say me and Miosha probably will fall in that middle. Could go AP, but kind of either way. But you have a big group who would have no hope. And that's the group that's growing. The AP group is going to be the AP group. That middle group is shrinking, but the lower level socioeconomic status kids and the families is growing. And a lot of those families were not poor, but because of everything that's happened in the last 20, 30 years, their incomes are decreasing. The jobs are shrinking. And so as a result, the kids and their access to quality education is shrinking, because in a high school, you got to remember, a lot of those teachers are nationally certified, board certified teachers. So they don't want to teach the freshmen or the classes that are like way over here. For their certification, they have to have the AP, they have to have the higher level classes. So what happens is the kids who need the strongest instruction don't get it because the highest level teachers are teaching the highest level kids. And as a radical principle, I tried to shift that and will continue to try to shift that because, our lower level kids, I have a 15-year-old kid who I tested his reading level. He's in kindergarten. He went to McDonald's and he couldn't read the McDonald's menu. So he ordered what his friend ordered. And when I noticed it, I could have just cried because I'm like, you survived for 15 years and you can't read at all. No sight words, can't read school bus. And so when you have a growing population of those kids, then you think about gun violence as the end result. Well, if I can't read and I'm getting teased and the teachers don't want me in the classroom, and when they're talking to me, they're talking over my head, so I'm gonna go in the hallway, get in trouble, get suspended, expelled. Now the streets is my school now, and I'm gonna find solace and love from them. So when it's time to pull a jukes or do whatever we whoop, that's what I'm gonna do. And so that is what I'm seeing in specifically in Chicago, and I'm sure other urban areas like Baltimore. I'm sure if I did the research, it would be the same demographics.
I feel like it's probably like that everywhere now. Just more and more, less influential teachers and more influential outside sources as far as this, like you said, the streets, and then social media, pop culture, so much. So I feel like all of those things, I feel like that's not just, obviously about Chicago. I feel like we see it everywhere. You see
especially here, more like we wouldn't even think so, but we talk about it being a small town city with big town crimes and violence at some time. And, just recently about the young guy who had, got killed. And it's just like gun violence is a problem around the country. It really is. And Mom always said bullets don't have no names on it. And it's a shame that it's just people can get their hands on guns and they just can take somebody's life. Some people have no sense of reality and that death is just permanent. And, I think a lot of our kids are definitely struggling, and I don't know if, the correspondence between education, I think over the years we've seen, the correspondence between education and behavior. And you find a lot of the times, the kids who do struggle tend to act out. And it's a tough situation in this age of social media. Like, we didn't have social media. Like, where we from, we were all kind of on the same level. So it was like, we didn't know. But here it's just like these kids got J's, these kids be like, oh, it's such a tough situation that our children are growing up in, these days. So it's a tough situation. Now, did any of you guys have any questions for Dr. Nance?
Yeah, I have a question. So you had kind of shared with us your upbringing and how your father was deceased at an early age, and you were basically raised in a single parent household. What advice would you give to Black single mothers attempting to raise males on their own, since you kind of were in that situation? What advice would you give them?
First thing I would say is take a deep breath. Looking back, I understand the pressure that I put on my mother, and I was like 1 foot in the street, 1 foot out. You got a son that's both feet in the street, and he's carrying pistols and selling drugs. So I have several parents that lost kids to gun violence out here, and I don't know what happens at the age of 14, but in my experience, once a Black man or a Black boy, no father in the home for whatever reason, turns 14, and he hasn't had any rigid like structure, like for maybe 6 months, like some rigid structure, like they turn quickly on their mothers more than anybody. Like, I've had mothers calling me and emailing me crying because, the son just laid him out and he's bigger now, physically stronger, and he wants to go out. She don't want him to go out. and she can't stop them. So it's like, that's why I said take that deep breath first. Second thing I would say is do as much as you can to give them the information and the options. You're not going to force, I don't force kids to do anything they don't want to do. I just don't. I'm not a disciplinarian. I give kids options and information, and I try to establish some trust, even if it's a hard truth, some semblance of trust. And then I try to work my way to navigate their spaces. But, trying to force a 14-year-old boy who wants to be, the next, Lil Durk, who wants the $300 Jordans and all the fashion, but can't spell cat and hat, it's a tough, it's almost an impossible task. So when I'm in their spaces, I just try to empower mothers, to let them know that I was that 14-year-old boy. I'm telling you, you've done A through Z, because I know, I hear it in your voice. My mother had the same voice. So it's like only thing we can do for those mothers in that situation is try to empower them and also try to keep them safe. I've had to tell some mothers, I recommend you put them out your house. You need to call the sheriff. If you know he has a weapon on him, because what happens is, let's say you got a 6-year-old daughter in the house and you got a 15-year-old son. 15-year-old son robs somebody for whatever, or they shoot somebody, whatever. They coming back and they shooting up houses. They shooting up houses, real talk. So I tell mothers the real gutter truth. If you know don't tell me if he is, but if you know he's packing, you got to make a decision to keep you and your family safe. Now, on a smaller scale, if it's a black male that's workable, reachable, you got to find him somebody to connect with. I don't call nobody a mentor. You got to find that young man somebody he can connect with that's going to be consistent. They have to be consistent. I think that is the biggest thing I can say for a mother who doesn't have a father in the home. You got to find that boy, somebody to connect with, who's going to stay on his black ASS, who's going to talk to him the way he needed, but also show him a different way. Because a lot of mentors, especially the ones who's been locked up, and nothing against them, but you need training, because the hard rah without some theoretical, without some shifting lanes, all it's going to do is harden him to want to do rah. So we have to make sure that we have the duality coming in, where I'm giving you that tough love, but I'm also taking you out to eat and just showing you some different things. So I often take kids Saturdays and Sundays out to McDonald's for 30 minutes, even if it's at 30 minutes, get them a meal, just talk. And I don't force the conversation. So if you got to tell him something, connect him with somebody, somebody who's gonna always be consistent, make no promises, but always give that son the truth, because it's hard. It really is hard with black males. I'm just keeping it 100.
Okay. Anybody else? All right, Dr. Nance. What advice would you give to students to have a successful school year and future?
Main thing is support system. You got to have 4 or 5 dogs, like Dion says, 4 or 5 dogs in your camp that'll bite you. They ain't going to just bark. That'll bite you when you need to be bitten, but also bark a little bit and then give you some love as well. That support system is everything. Without my support system, I don't exist. Without my team, I don't exist. So in order to be super successful, you got to have that support system. You got to hit those books. Once you get out of 3rd grade, it goes from teacher centered to student centered, which basically means if you don't study now in 3rd grade and up, you ain't going to just get it like that. And so you got to keep your head in those books. You got to learn how to study and follow those who are on the right path. Surround your circle. Master P says, show me your 5 friends, I'll show you your future. I believe that to be true. So look around your circle. Look around. If there's somebody in there you know is ratchet, you gotta ask yourself some questions. I don't tell you to lose the ratchet. I just say you gotta ask yourself some philosophical questions, because your outfit looks a little ratchet. 2 weeks ago you was wearing, the knee lift dresses. Now is hyped up to the thigh. So I'm not mad at you. I'm not mad at you. I'm not judging you. I'm just giving you my perspective. So you gotta ask yourself some questions. And so support system, without question, is the number one thing I think leads to success. Having those around you who can help guide you, who you listen to, who you trust, who can be there for you 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 2 in the morning when you need that 5 or 10 minute cry. And trust. I think for me, trust is everything. I gotta trust the spaces I'm in. I gotta trust my people, and I'm gonna test the trust to see what's up. Because trust is on a continuum for me. You can't just lay in the cut and be trustworthy. You gotta show me that I can trust you. So over the years, me and Yosha got 3 decades in the game, and every step of the way, I feel like she's been there, even though we're far apart. And the trust that we have is at the highest level. And nobody can touch it, nobody can mess with it. So I thank God for Yosh, because without her, I said I don't see me being here in this space.
Honey, he's a piece of work.
I have a question for you, and thank you again for joining us tonight. So my son goes to a private school in Montgomery County, and one of the reasons that we chose the school was a great school academically, but it was diverse as far as the students, which was really important to us. However, there's really not a lot of diversity among the teachers. Which that is what it is. But my question for you is, obviously we always you hear about the shortage of Black teachers in school. So why do you think that is, and how can that be changed, specifically Black males?
So a part of my dissertation I spent talking about this issue that you brought up, the lack of especially Black males in the school system. And I go back to the organizational culture. And to me, that means the way I talk, the way I dress, like the talk shows that we talk about in the break room, all those little nuances that groups discuss make up the organizational culture. Well, if 70% of the teachers are white women, it's hard for me to come in as my authentic self into a break room and I have no one there who looks like me, and then the conversation is about Trump, or they're talking about Catholicism and all those different things that they're not applicable to me, and I don't want to get into any type of back and forth. So the organizational space has to change. And also, we got to make it cool. We got to education needs to go back to being fun. We need our teachers to come in as themselves, to enjoy the kids. The teachers who enjoy the kids, who are themselves, especially the Black ones, and them classrooms have music, they have posters of all Black figures. The classroom feels like a museum of Black. And obviously, as we can progress, you have your Asian and all those things, but specifically for Black, if you want more Black young professionals to enter into the education field, we got to make it more appealing. And we're stuck in these archaic systems, and trying to implode those systems has been a nightmare because those people profit off of the suffrage. We get in Illinois, you get $18,000 per kid. So if they're, in alternative school and, we're sending them there, we got to pay the alternative school that money. However, if we expel them because they don't fit our system, then we don't have to lose that money. So there's a lot of different politics and different pockets that make up that organizational culture. But one thing we need to do, like I said, is make it more appealing, promote, really go after our Black young people early, and we got to pay more. We should be starting out $60,000 a year, starting out. But again, you normally start out at 42, 43. Why would I go to school, get an $80,000 degree, and then I got to wait 3 years before I can pay it back?
Right.
I would have been a teacher.
You would.
But the salary was it's not realistic.
I feel like
I teach in my profession what I'm doing, but I always thought I would have been a teacher. I love to teach. But baby, when you tell me I'm make $30,000-$40,000, I already know what being poor is like. I ain't go to school, I ain't go to college to still be poor. That's real counterproductive. So you're not going to get the best people in the teaching professions because they don't make it attractive as far as having a livable wage. You have to, most teachers work maybe three jobs. And if you don't marry, Lord, you might have to work maybe 3-4 jobs. Jesus. It's just, they just don't make it. And it's a shame because education is so important. And we put so much more emphasis on entertainment and paying all of these players millions and millions of dollars and giving teachers and educators pennies. And it's not right. It is not right. So these children are struggling. You got to send your children to private school if you want them to have a really great education, because otherwise, a lot of the schools down here, I think they've gone to where you don't even have to have a teaching degree, like a degree in education. So it's just, there is a shortage because they don't make it attractive. And it's a shame.
There's a major shortage in teachers.
Yeah, it is. It's a shame.
I feel like whoever, this is going to be a funny, but I feel like whoever, does the workings for Gracie's Corner should teach a class to the teachers. Because I feel like when you hear the way Gracie's Corner is for little kids, but it's so captivating that I feel like whoever, people need to take on that vibe, because it would make learning fun. Because I feel like I want to learn my ABCs again because the way Gracie's Corner teaches it. So.
And kids respond to music.
Kids respond to music. Kids respond to real, like, so when you see Dr. Nance, he's got the fly hat on, he's got his fit on. So kids respond to that. They're probably trying to put him on their TikTok, like, look at my principal. I feel like you have to do those things. So, I mean, and it's not like, I mean, of course, you go to school for an education, but like you said, make education doesn't have to be read a book, do the math problem. It can be fun. And you're more likely to remember it when it's something you can relate to, like, oh, I remember he did that dance or he did that TikTok with me, but it was about quantum physics or something. Well, I don't know what that, so you're more likely to retain the information. So.
I was going to say, Dr. Nance, like when I was going to school, our teachers, they look like teachers. They had a certain respect just by how they carried themselves. Like, it wasn't the teacher sitting in front of her male students with a dress, iced up to her thigh, and then you wonder why little Johnny, can't get up to the bathroom and he
can't spell hat and cat. Right. He's preoccupied.
But I want to know, like, how does it's just that we had that. I thank God I came through when I did, because it's like they just had they commanded a certain respect.
They're going right, they did.
They and it wasn't like they were necessarily mean, but they just knew how to control the classroom. And do you find that is a challenge as far as even in Chicago, as far as how a teacher presents themselves in the classroom? I don't know if you're at a predominantly black school.
Okay. No, I'm in a diverse school, but Chicago is where a lot of the splash and the fashion come from. So we don't have too many issues with like the flavor, because it's all colors out here. But I will say I agree with you in the fact that the respect level that teachers commanded back when we were in school has definitely changed. And I think the mothers becoming younger mothers. So we have a lot of mothers between like 20 and 28. So again, we're not commanding respect in the home. So then the students coming to school disrespecting the teachers because I can do it at home and I watch my mom do it. So that's a part of it too. I think, and a lot of teachers are burnt out too. Like a lot of teachers they don't have time for the foolishness, and so it's like, I didn't get my degree to have to be a social worker, marriage counselor, custodian. But again, the 21st century teacher, you need some so that's why. So I have an idea about creating a social work / teacher position where you can get $60,000, but we got to go to the college to get both degrees. But a teacher needs to have those skills now in the 21st century classroom, because you have a lot of kids with mental health issues who will only tell you. They don't want to go talk to Diane, who's a certified social worker, and then it becomes an issue with you and the social worker because the student only talks to you. You got to give information to the social worker, and she's mad because the kid won't talk to her. So now she wants to write referrals, and you're not even the teacher. So again, you got a lot of flaws.
It is a little counterproductive for sure.
But it definitely has fell down. The respect level is definitely.
That would be a good idea.
Now, at your, I'm sorry. So at your school, like, what is like the teacher's dress? Like, I'm sure they have to dress respectfully, but how do they like? I know you're in Chi-Town, so it's like, how does it work in Chi-Town?
So I'm gonna tell you this: I'm at a school where the teacher ratio is like 90% white, so the organizational culture is white American.
Okay.
So they go from coaches with sweatsuits to like the khakis. It's very lax. But the one thing about the dressing that has happened now that wasn't before is we got a lot of body shaming language now. So what happens is, let's say a high school girl comes in with like something that I'll be like, oh my God, but I'm just saying it in my mind. I'm not gonna say it to her. Well, if somebody says something and her mother complains that we're body shaming and that's all she can afford, now we have to be like, okay, So a lot of us have now, especially black men or men in general, we like this when it comes to the fashion, even with our teachers. I'm a principal. I got a lot of women teachers, but if I saw something that was like, am I going to say something? If that teacher's connected to somebody at central office and I send an email, now here we go. You know what I mean? So It's like, you got to really pick and choose.
Yeah, your battles, yeah.
Stuff, but the dress has definitely went all the way down. It's definitely down.
Got you.
Very good. All right. Do we have any other questions or anything else that we want to address? Because if not, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Dr. Nance, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Yes.
The decisions that we make don't only affect us, they affect a lot of people around us, right? Mm-hmm. So, we can only do our part, right? We can only do our part. And in our Real Talk fashion, we have what we call a rapid fire question. And I was thinking, I didn't know what question to ask. I tried to stay along the lines of everything, but I'm gonna just try to keep it a little bit motivational, like to give people some food to take with them, if you will. So is there a quote or a saying that you kind of live by that you've been using for the majority of your life that has helped you navigate through life just a little bit easier?
Yeah, I do. Thank you, Dr. Nance, again for coming on.
Yes, thank you so much.
Opportunities of a lifetime exist within the lifetime of the opportunity.
Ooh, okay. All right.
Fire. Can you send that to me in a text?
No. I feel like that's a point somewhere.
I feel like that is I feel like that's one. Was that one of your sermons?
On there.
I feel like that was a sermon.
No, it's just I just love it. Well, anyway, go ahead.
That's a good one.
Mine is literally, it's never too late to be great, because, sometimes we feel like because we're a certain age or we're past a certain moment or a certain time, or we failed the first time or we stopped the first time that, it's done, but it's never too late to be great. Greatness can happen at any time, any moment. So keep striving towards it. It's never too late.
Exactly.
That's good.
Yeah.
Brianna.
Mine is that growth and comfortability do not live on the same street. I feel like, a lot of times you get comfortable with knowing that it's going to be so easy, like life is going to be good. Like I've been good at everything thus far. Dr. Nance, you mentioned it earlier, how you were just good at school. School came easy to you. I felt like that was like that for me as well. And then I started my PhD program and it was hard. And it was tough because I was like, first of all, what is happening?
I've been smart all my life, but
I have been now I'm fighting for my life. Like,
yeah,
what is it?
This is not me. Like, what is going on? But yeah, I feel like that's something that mom has told me continuously growing up, and I've started to rely on it a lot more. That growth and comfortability, they just don't live on the same street. If you want to grow, if you want to get better, you want to be better, like you have to be willing to step outside your comfort zone. So.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. For me, I'm not trying to be deep or anything, but for me, it's Jeremiah 29:11. It says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." And the reason why that scripture is so dear to me is because even when my plan doesn't work, I know that God has a plan.
God's plan. Oh,
and he still has.
Come on, somebody.
And for me, and I know I'm still in this plane, so that's my
handshake Brandon a little offering.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, that's a good one. That's a good one. That's on my Let's Get Biblical Pinterest board.
I hear you, Bishop.
If I had to give one, or I had to say which mine was, it's always my boss. When I first started my career, she always said, "Miosha, ignorance will cost you." And I take that with me wherever I go. And, my job is a technical expert, and I believe in knowing a little bit about a lot of things. I don't have to know everything, but I like to know a little bit about a lot of things because ignorance will in fact cost you, right? And that's why education is so important.
Facts.
Because you see when people have it and you see when they don't. And when we're younger, we just like, we don't know. But when we grow up, it's just like, you know, now I know. Now it all makes sense. So now if we choose to be ignorant, it's a choice because we got a lot of information at our fingertips and we can just go and search it. You know what I mean? So that's what I would say. Dr. Nance.
So I'm definitely a Colorado bandwagon with Deion. I'm gonna keep it all the way 100.
I'm not mad. I'm not mad.
And for a lot of my professional career, you know, when I'm in white spaces, I put my head down, I cower down, I don't never talk. Because I know if I say something or express myself, it might come back to bite me professionally. But his quote about the confidence and insecurities is the one that I think about every day because that was me, you know, because I was holding back my confidence because I didn't want to offend no one. You know, I think about all the kids that I, you know, possibly could have saved in IEP meetings and expulsion hearings when I'm crying because I got expelled another black male. So now that I'm Dr. Nance officially, you know, in their world, that's the pinnacle. So now when I walk in these rooms, you're going to get all the bravado, the air, you're going to get all of that. Plus
you got to
academic,
reclaim your time.
You're getting all the smoke. You're getting all the smoke now. Because
we love it.
Who messed around and gave him? Who did it? Who was it? Well, very good. So, Dr. Nance, my dear friend, my heart, thank you so much for joining us. We had a great session.
Thank you so much.
Guys, y'all have a good one. Have a good evening. And remember to make great choices.
Right now.
Bye.
D-City, baby.
All day. All day.
Okay.